The following episode of Mind of a Geek is brought to you by the That Was Awesome podcast. That Was Awesome is the newest show coming out of Inked Geek Studios. Join us every week as we go back through wrestling history to do live commentary on past wrestling events, everything from WWE, WWF, WCW, and more. So be sure to go to inkedgeekstudios.com/thatwasawesome. And remember, that was awesome. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to episode 6 of Mind of a Geek. I am joined today by Mr. Bill Doran. Bill, how's it going?
It's going pretty great over here, up in rainy Seattle.
It
is rainy today.
Better than snowy Maine.
I agree. You don't have to shovel rain.
No, but also you can walk through the snow for a couple minutes and then not come out soaked.
That's true.
They have their pros and cons. Well, Bill, thanks for taking the time to come on the show with us today.
Happy to be here.
For regular listeners of the show, you'll notice this is the second episode of Mind of a Geek you're getting this week because Bill emailed me in the middle of the week, said, I'm free Friday. What about you? And I'm like, I can do it.
Yes.
And when somebody as busy as Bill has time in his schedule opened up, you take it.
Mm-hmm.
So you are the owner of Punish Props,
That's what it says in the paperwork anyway.
So, and that is your professional prop making and cosplay outfit design studio.
That is correct. My wife and I run Punish Props out of our home here in just outside of Seattle. Been an entity for almost 4 years now, running this full time. I quit my day job over at the Microsoft quite a few years ago, and now we make crap in our basement professionally for a living. It's pretty good.
Hey, you can't complain about that.
No.
You get to design professional Halloween costumes for a living.
Yeah, on my LinkedIn profile, my job title is Intergalactic Arms Dealer.
Nice.
That's because I'm the boss. I get to pick whatever my job
right.
title is.
Well, that works. I mean, you can't complain there. And I see you're supporting the Mass Effect jogging zip up, I guess you'd call it.
Well, this one is the tech hoodie. It's got the micro fleece and the
nice.
Yeah, I gotta rep my my boys, my Commander Shepard, of course.
Right. Oh, definitely one of the.
A lot of what I did getting started in prop and costume making was Mass Effect stuff because I was so into the lore and into that universe and all the designs, especially the space guns. Just they spoke to me. So I just jumped in with both feet.
So
actually, my profile picture on LinkedIn is a picture of me in my Mass Effect armor.
I remember seeing that. I'm familiar with some of your work. We met. You probably don't remember, but we met very briefly at BlizzCon back in 2014. A very hey chin beard, and that was basically the extent of it because you guys are all really busy out there. But I also
was I in a costume?
You were.
Probably.
Yeah, I don't. Was it perhaps
a
Star?
My house.
Was it perhaps a StarCraft outfit?
No.
BlizzCon 14.
No, I don't.
Because I know BlizzCon 15, you were in the Crusader outfit, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
True.
And your
wife
was
likely.
the monk.
I try not to leave my house unless I'm wearing a costume.
But anyway, so I've been a fan of your work, and I listen to all of Scott's stuff, so I hear you when you're on the morning stream, and you're either talking about diets or costume making. So
yes.
But so how did you get into? I mean, you said that Mass Effect was kind of your initial calling to that, but did you always have a desire to build and to create? Was that something you always enjoyed?
Oh yeah, definitely. So my mom's an art teacher, and which is pretty great. She's got me into photography, got me into drawing and painting and sculpting, and my dad was also very, very handy. So we would fix the house. We rebuilt a car. We would play with radio controlled cars and boats and planes. So we did a lot of that handy stuff growing up. I got very familiar with power tools from a young age, and I went to school for computer art, so 3D modeling and animation and Photoshop. So just growing up, very very into the making of things, which kind of led me down this path.
Makes sense. And
Hmm.
it's so you start off. I assume you start off with some photos of the item you're going to make, and then are your items crafted? Like, what materials do you use most when crafting your items?
Boy, it depends. I got this behind me. I got a 3D printer. I got that recently, and it's not the only tool to use for the job, but it sure is handy for some of the jobs.
Right.
But I like using materials like different types of wood. I like MDF. I like different plastics like styrene plastic or PVC, or different types of foam like EVA or EPS or all manner of stuff. Like I have just piles of different types of materials in there because different jobs, different projects demand different types of materials, different types of techniques, which is why I have so many tools and no disposable income. Because yeah, that's it's the whole process, like you said, drawing, going through reference images, figuring out your build. It's all one big problem solving exercise, and sometimes that problem needs to be solved with a 3D printer, or sometimes that problem needs to be solved with a bandsaw or a second bandsaw.
Or throwing it off the wall and starting from scratch.
I've I've done that before.
I think we all have in our own respective ways sometimes.
Mhm. The very first time I tried to make a mold, I do a lot of silicone molding and casting. In fact, on our YouTube channel right now, we're doing a whole series on molding and casting. The very first time I tried to make a mold, I made Jim Raynor's pistol, and I wanted to make copies of it. So I made a urethane mold. I don't know why I did that instead of silicone, so don't ask.
All right. Well,
But I made a urethane, a rubber mold, and um, I forgot to put mold release on it for the second half of the mold, and I realized that in the middle of the night, and I ran downstairs, and it was destroyed. It was just worthless, and I may have thrown that across the room.
hey, if you can't destroy some things, then what's the point of creating some things, right?
There's a lot of destruction involved in the creative process.
So, when you're looking for different things to create, obviously, I mean, you have probably two categories there. You have things that you create for your personal self, stuff that you want to wear, characters and costumes that, that you're in love with, that you design. And then you also have, orders that people might put in with you. And at that point, you just gonna kind of create whatever they want you to create.
Right, right.
When picking things for your personal desires, what are some different things that grab your interest? Like maybe a particular, obviously, with Mass Effect and Shepard, stuff like that. But like, or perhaps maybe like the character doesn't pull you in, but their outfit might, or maybe their
Right.
weapons.
I think for most people who are into cosplay, the character is really what draws them in. Their enthusiasm for that character, and that was the case for me with Commander Shepard. Partially because you try and personify yourself in that character. So Commander Shepard is just the most badass version of me, the way I look at it. Anyway,
So when
we
you
bear a striking resemblance.
so when you played Mass Effect, did you name him Bill and make him look like
No,
you?
no, I don't remember. He looked kind of like me, but anyway, when I picked that, I knew I wanted to make something from Mass Effect because I was in love with the series. The specific armor I picked though was not the standard N7 armor. It was the Defender armor because visually, to me, that was just the coolest looking armor. It's a little bit bulkier. It looked a little more sturdy. It had big shoulders. I like to think I'm a big man, so getting big shoulders on the armor helps out. So for me, a lot of times when I'm picking a costume, I go more for the visual appeal.
Okay.
Specifically armor, I like a lot. You mentioned I did the Crusader at BlizzCon. That was another one with big shoulder pads.
That was
Just
awesome,
kind of,
by the way. I saw the
oh,
pictures of
thanks.
that, and I was just, I've always been a fan of well done cosplay. I mean, I respect anybody who does it.
Mhm.
regardless of whether you put $5 into it or $5,000 into it. It's an art, it's a passion, and I don't have the balls to do it. So like, you know what I mean? Especially some of the costumes that these people wear. So I have a respect on that level already. And then the art that you do is phenomenal. And I don't think I've ever seen a picture of something that you designed that I was like, well, that really wasn't Bill.
That's because I've deleted all of those pictures off the internet.
They don't exist. We won't
Don't
talk about.
exist.
They are digitally thrown across the room.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, but for me, the visual appeal really speaks to me. Although, of course, with Diablo, I played a Crusader, but the armor I made, I didn't pick any armor set my character actually had. In
right,
fact, I kind of mixed and matched a little bit to come up with my own fun Crusader design that I liked. Just making sure that he had big shoulders.
one of the broad shoulder appeal.
Yeah.
So
And I'll let you behind the curtain a little bit more too. I did a Lord Shaxx costume from Destiny,
okay,
and I'm 5'9". I'm average height. Lord Shaxx is not average height. He's a big fella, right? I'm gonna guess he would probably be at least 6'5" or taller. Now, I'm not gonna be 6'5", but I did get motorcycle boots with a good, I don't know, inch and a half lift on the heels, and I put heel lifts in the shoes. So that put me up approaching 6 feet because I wanted to be a little bit taller,
right, get there.
big
I'm just
shoulders, and
I'm grinning because all I can think I've not to sidetrack too much, but I've been binge watching Seinfeld on Hulu, and all I can think of is that episode with Kramer and his little friend, and he's heightening. So
yeah.
all of his little friends get mad at him for heightening because you don't do it. But anyway,
Yeah,
sorry.
but I do the same thing. So I had those same boots with the lifts in them, and I just wore them for my Crusader because I'm like, why not, right? A Crusader would probably be a little bit taller, and
Right.
of course, none of this matters because my wife is much taller than I am, and I will never be, no matter how much lift I put in my
Right.
shoes, I will never be as tall as her.
So, of all the costumes that you've done, the amazing ones that you haven't deleted evidence of, and even some of the ones that you have, what would you say was maybe not at the end, but from the beginning, looking at a project, what would you say was the most daunting one that you ever tackled and successfully accomplished?
My wife and I did Skyrim Draugrs, the Draugr Deathlords from Skyrim. Yeah, there we go. Those ones were super challenging, but also really satisfying to pull off because there were a lot of different types of techniques. We had foam armor, we had cloth, we had chainmail, we had to do full body suits to try and look undead. Uh, there were electronics to make the eyes glow. We had to make weapons. We had to distress everything. So there were a lot of elements that had to come together, and also it was just an amazing amount of hours to put in to finish those costumes. But it did all come together. But yeah, that was daunting. Like if I had to start one of those costumes right now, I I don't even remember doing it. Like it's all a blank. I'm like, how would we do that again? I
It,
don't even know.
it was so traumatic, your memory has erased it.
Yeah. I just remembered hours and hours because all of the foam armor was supposed to look like hammered metal. So I had a Dremel and just for hours would just grind all these tiny dents over every square inch of the armor. And I don't remember, hunched over my Dremel until my hand went numb. And then I couldn't work on it anyway. I had to go do something else for a while.
One of those things where at the end of the day, when it all came together, it was worth the effort that you can remember putting into it.
Yes, it was. Yes.
Now,
I'm actually glad I blanked it all out because then I could trick myself into doing that again.
now which convention was that one worn to? Or I assume it's been worn
Oh,
multiple times.
yeah, we've worn those all over the place. They're starting to fall apart. We dragged them to what's the last place I took? I can't remember, but the last time we took those out again, we had to do some pretty heavy repairs. But we've gone to Dragon Con with those. I actually took mine to BlizzCon a couple years ago. It's not a Blizzard costume, but people are like, "Are you a Death Knight?" And I'm like, "Sure."
Why not?
Yeah, but Emerald City
Multi-purpose.
Comic Con out here in Seattle, PAX out here in Seattle, Dragon Con is our favorite one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've dragged those all over the world.
I was say, yeah, because I do remember I heard from well, again one of the times you were on morning stream that I don't remember how recent it was because I have that memory thing too, but
Hmm.
you guys had actually gone over to Europe to go to some conventions. Was that correct or
I did last year. I went to London Super Comic Con, which was
okay?
super duper fun. That was really cool. It was very interesting to see um, sort of how the cosplay scene is out there. It
Right,
had a much more international vibe because you can literally get on a plane in London and land in Paris an hour later. It's so much closer.
right,
It's like I'm in Seattle and I will regularly go to conventions in Portland, Oregon because it's only a 3-hour drive away.
right,
That's what it's like in Europe, except you go between like Belgium and France. It's not that far. So
right.
their community out there of cosplayers very international. Everyone knows one another. It's very tight knit, and it was kind of cool to get to be a part of that.
Interesting. I assume there's probably like some American cosplayers over there that as well that just kind of all blend in and
Yeah,
but
yeah.
are they I assume similar concept video game characters, anime characters, just kind of the
Yep.
love.
Oh
And
yeah. In fact, I think one of the biggest anime conventions. I'm gonna look it up, but I think one of the biggest anime conventions is in Paris. That was the anime convention, Paris. Let's see what the Google machine comes up
choose
with.
the internet.
Japan. It's called Japan Expo,
Okay.
and a 250,000 people went to that.
Wow.
That is almost twice as big as San Diego Comic Con,
Which is already
so
huge.
which is massive. Yeah, so just to get that, like our minds are blown out here in the States when 150,000 people go to New York Comic Con or San Diego Comic Con. We're like, oh my god, it's so big. But Gamescom, like 300,000 people go to that. It's bonkers.
Right. Well, I mean, to me, like I went to BlizzCon and that was huge because
What?
I live in Maine.
Yeah.
So our closest convention is PortCon, which is Portland, Maine, their port convention, and we're talking maybe a couple thousand people.
Right. BlizzCon is tiny.
Yeah.
It's like 25,000 people. So ridiculously small.
Right.
Out here in Seattle, Emerald City Comic Con, I think tops out at like 65,000 people, and they can't cram any more people in the space.
Right.
What's another one? Dragon Con is similar, only it's not housed in a convention center. So sometimes it feels very crowded in the main area and the main hotels, but then like the areas outside of that are a little bit, there's more breathing room.
Now that's the one
Yeah.
down in Georgia, right?
Yeah, in Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah.
And that one's massive costume party for 5 days straight. And it's
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah, that's one of the ones that we've talked about going to too, because that's something that my wife and I are going to get into is traveling around two different conventions more. We went to BlizzCon back in 2014. It was my first one, my first major convention, really. And being a Blizzard fanboy, it was cool to be there.
Oh yeah. I will say BlizzCon is one of my favorites just because it's like people who are fans of Blizzard stuff tend to be extremely enthusiastic about portraying that enthusiasm.
Right.
And when you get all of those people in one convention center, it's just like super condensed
Oh yeah.
fan nerd oozes, and it's great. I love it.
It's the one thing you can say about Blizzard fans is we're very passionate.
A lot of passion going on around there, and it's not by accident either. Blizzard, them like as a company, has that same sort of passion, that level of enthusiasm for their own stuff, and it's the sort of thing where you kind of get the fans you deserve, and that's why Blizzard has those fans.
Most definitely.
Because it's not easy to get a ticket to BlizzCon. Like
No.
it's so small, it's capped off. Like the people who get tickets are the people who are willing to like put in the work
Yeah.
to get a ticket, to get a room, all of that.
Yeah, it's no. When we did it back in 2014, I had my main PC, my iMac, my MacBook, my iPad, all refreshing the page.
Yeah.
My wife was on the other laptop, and then the two guys the one show I did back then, the guys I podcasted with, they were all refreshing too, and we live streamed the whole thing.
Yeah.
So that was pretty fun. But yeah, that was nerve wracking. And then one of us got through, and yeah, it kind of hurts your ears to listen to the live stream when we actually get through.
Mhm.
But so aside from making the props, as you know, doing the punished props, you also now have this YouTube channel where you
Yep.
do molding and casting. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Certainly. Well, the interesting is we've had this really over a long time. Our company has shifted into where our main focus is. So when I got started, just about everything I did was people would pay me to build stuff for them. You know, I made costumes for people. I stopped doing that pretty quickly because doing custom costume fittings for people across the internet is very difficult.
Right.
And space guns are one size fits all. So I sort of focused on building props for people on commission. But over time, people kept wanting to know more and more about how I did what I did, how I made all those things. And I would write blog write-ups, have photos on my entire process for just about everything I built. But I have a background in doing video and doing video editing and public speaking. So I thought, well, why don't I just start making videos about different techniques, you know, how I do all this stuff? Because then when people ask me how I made something, I can just send them to a video. But hey, check out, I made a video about that. That was 3 years ago, I think. I'll have to double check and see when I actually started, see what my first video was. But we've done over 300 videos
Oh wow.
on our YouTube channel. Yeah. Which is crazy to look back on and think about how much work that was. But that's how it got started. Just me showcasing the techniques and materials I use to build all the props and costumes that I make. And over time, we just started doing that more. We started getting more feedback from people who were learning from our videos. I started writing books on prop making and on costume making. And now the tutorial side of it, the videos, the books, the website, all of that has become the largest part of how we do our business, because we were able to reach such a large audience that's interested in learning.
Right.
It's been the most successful aspect of our business, but also the most satisfying too.
Right. Yeah. Well, because at that point you're not just selling a product, but you're selling knowledge, and you're selling, you know, education and training, and almost goes back to the old adage of, you know, give a man a fish or teach a man to fish.
Yeah, we actually, my wife and I say that all the time. We say, someone will come to us and be like, "Well, we need to make sure we teach him to fish. We're not gonna give him a fish. We're gonna teach him how to fish."
Right.
So we use that exact term all the time.
And it's cool that. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just gonna say, the great thing about that is now we're having people coming back to us showing the things that they've made using the techniques we've taught, and they're incredible. If you on punishprops.com, our website, we have a foam smith gallery that's devoted to costumes and props that our fans have made using the tips in our books. And it's amazing. Like, these people are better at it than I am. Like, they just took the techniques that I have and they ran with it. And
Right.
it is inspiring to see that. And it's extremely rewarding to know that I, in some small way, helped that happen.
Kind of helps spark that fire a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Yeah. So no, that's definitely really cool. I would, and it's great that you do that, because I could imagine some people in your position, you know, you almost have, maybe fear isn't the right word, but like, oh, well, if I teach them how to do it themselves, then they're not going to buy anything from us. And you're almost just completely breaking that logic, and you're teaching them, and then they still come back as customers. They want to learn more and things like that.
Yeah, and since we don't really do a lot of the commission stuff anymore, I'm not even too worried about whether or not a customer is going to come back to buy something from me, because the people I'm targeting, the people that I want reading my content, aren't the people who want to just buy something, buy a finished product. These are the people that want to build something. They are me 5 years ago when I saw my favorite gun in Mass Effect, and you couldn't buy it. It doesn't exist. So I said, well, I better make it, you know? Like, that's the attitude I had. That's what got me into it.
Right.
And our amazing fans are in the same position. They see a thing they want, it doesn't exist, and they say, well, how can I make it? And if I can help them make it, then they'll keep coming back. They say, that's great, Bill. I learned a lot from your book. I want to make something else. what else do you have? What other videos do you have? What other information or books do you have? And that creates this amazing, like, creative loop where I make stuff, I show people how to make it, they make stuff, they learn from it, they can teach me. There's a lot of back and forth going on
Right.
there. And it's just created this wonderful creative like feedback loop that I'm able to sustain a business inside of,
Right.
which is
Almost like the student becomes the peer.
yeah, exactly, yeah. Especially since most of, like I said, most of these guys are way better at this than I am.
So what are some like tips? Let's say you're talking to somebody who they want to do this, they've never done it, but they desire to it.
Hmm.
What are maybe some first steps that someone should look into, or maybe some techniques to practice, like maybe a
Sure.
smaller scale
What I
attempt?
what I like to do, I recommend people if they want to start building costumes or props or whatever it is, pick something that you really like. All right, something, a character or an item, something that you're way into, because especially right when you're getting started, you're gonna get frustrated with the process. You're learning, you're not good at the techniques yet. You're gonna get frustrated. So if the thing you're building is something that you don't care about, you're gonna give up. So pick something you're obsessed with. Pick something from your favorite Blizzard game, right? Like I did a while ago, a long while ago, I did the Warglaive of Azeroth
Nice.
that Illidan has. Yeah, I made one. I should have made two, but it was really, really hard. I just made the one. But that thing is awesome. I'm just in love with that. It's got glowing lights on it, and it was a frustrating build because I was learning a lot of new techniques. But I wanted nothing more than to see that thing realized. And
Right.
that desire, my attachment to that fandom is what got me through it. So I recommend people pick something that they love. Now, also pick something with what I call an appropriate amount of uh what's the word? Like pick a difficulty that will challenge you but it isn't crazy. So another Blizzard example. One of the first costumes I tried to make was Jim Raynor's space marine armor, right? Giant crazy mech armor. Ridiculous. What was I thinking? I spent like $200 on plastic and I just cut it and heat formed it in my basement for 2 days before I had destroyed about $100 of plastic. And I was like, that was ridiculous. It was way beyond my skill level. So what I should have done was, picked something about that character that I liked. For example, his gun, smaller, less of a monetary commitment. I should have done something less ambitious. That's right. An appropriate level of ambition, let's say. But again, challenge yourself a little bit and then build that thing. So if it's a costume, maybe pick the helmet, right? Don't start with the torso. Torsos are hard. Human shapes are weird. We're all shaped differently and in weird ways. And don't do the torso. Do the helmet. Start with the helmet. And then if you finish that helmet and you don't feel like making the rest of it, at least you have a helmet. You can go put that up on the shelf and be like, I made that thing. All right.
You have a hat.
But you have a hat. Yeah. Don't start with a thigh piece because that looks really terrible. Like, put that up on your mantle. What's that? Oh, that's the thigh armor I made. Start with a helmet.
Yeah, there's something about helmets that like aesthetically they can be displayed on their own and they look okay.
That's right.
Like,
Yeah. In fact, most of my costumes I probably think will end up going the way of just they're gonna disintegrate or fall apart, whatever. I will keep the helmets because they're cool. Like our Deathlord, our Draugr helmets, they have skull masks in them. They have glowing eyes. So even without a head in them, they look awesome and undead. So those I'm keeping forever, and I'll put them up on a shelf or on a mantle.
I can envision like 20 years in the future, like a little
Yeah,
nephew going like, "Uncle Bill, what did you do for so long?" "I made a series of helmets."
just helmet. Oh, well, for example, that same costume, the shin armor, has fur on it, and I've dragged that armor around the planet, so it's getting a little gross.
Yeah.
There's like leaves and twigs in it. Uh, the foam is just getting ripped up and dirty. I'm gonna throw that away someday. I'm not putting that up on the mantle, but the helmet I'll keep.
Now, for somebody who might be looking to get into a position like yours where they travel around and go to
Mhm.
all these different conventions and they're traveling with their costumes, how difficult do you find air travel to be with these giant monstrosities?
I've gotten pretty good at it. But what's important is if you're planning on traveling with a costume, you've got to consider that when you're designing it, right? So, like a good example, this axe I have back here, my axe for my Crusader costume. And I know Crusaders don't use axes, you guys. I wanted a two-handed axe, so I made a two-handed axe. Uh, that I designed that specifically. It comes apart. I can show you actually. It comes apart in the middle in two
Okay.
pieces, and these are exactly the right length so that they will fit in one of my suitcases. I have these big plastic foot lockers. They're hiding right here. Wally's sitting on one of them. Um, and I knew that this would fit in there, right?
Right.
So that I could take it apart, jam my armor, jam that axe in there, and I could go to BlizzCon with it. I could fly with it. So I had to design. I had to figure that out before I even started cutting material. So that's what I did,
Well,
and it
that
worked out.
works. Do you ever get any weird looks from TSA going, "What is in this
Uh,
box?"
I get weird looks whenever I leave my house. So TSA is nothing new. I will say we were going to Dragon Con one year, and everything fit in my luggage except for the helmet. And um, actually, a lot of times I don't like to put a helmet in the luggage anyway. I don't want it to get crushed or anything.
Right.
So we had my brother was there, my wife, and me. Most of us carried our second personal item was a helmet. So I had a Judge Dredd helmet, and my brother had an Iron Man helmet. And he just put Iron Man's head really on the conveyor belt, and it went right through the thing. And the TSA guy saw it, and he was like, "That's cool."
Should have made a vine out of it.
Yeah. So yeah, no, I get weird looks all the time. Anyway,
Yeah. So it comes with the territory.
it really does. I've really committed to this lifestyle.
So as far as um, another thing that I was kind of curious about, and might be helpful for some people to know if they aren't already, one of the topics that used to come up frequently, I noticed it hasn't lately, but whenever you and Scott would talk about cosplay, is what was it called? The stink bag? So everything
That's
that you
right.
wore underneath. So what is some good material or clothing to wear underneath the costumes to prevent, your natural odors from kind of seeping into them and perhaps ruining a costume?
The first things first, and this is just good general convention etiquette. When applying deodorant that day, start at the elbow and end at your waist. Just coat the entire area with deodorant. Everyone's going to appreciate that. If you're wearing a costume, consider getting like what do they call it? Antiperspirant. Really, that'll help you sweat a little less. So that's step one. Sweat is an issue. Smell is an issue. So just lather yourself up. And then I like using athletic clothing. It's designed to be moisture wicking. If you're making space armor, then that could be your undersuit. So you could like paint texture on it to make it look all sci-fi, but just get some athletic clothing and make it look like it fits. And a lot of that stuff fits anyway. Like paintball shirts are, they make them to look space aged anyway. So
Right.
you could wear that under your Destiny armor and it would look kind of cool. But it also added benefit. It's moisture wicking because it's athletic clothing. If you got something a little bit more like sci-fi or a fantasy, then you could wear athletic clothing under there and hide it so you don't see it. But also, I mean, just take breaks. Wearing your costume all day long and just sort of stewing in your own body filth all day is not a bad or not a great thing to do anyway. So if you can take a break halfway through the day, if you're at a convention, go to your hotel room, take it off for a little while, get plenty of water. That's not a bad idea anyway. And then when you take your costume off that night, one of the best things you can do is just have a water bottle with water and a little bit of actually like vodka works. I
Of
think
course it does.
Mythbusters did. You're gonna have vodka anyway at your convention.
Right.
Just put that water bottle with a little mixed with a little water, and I think Mythbusters did an episode where they tried to get rid of the smoke smell that way, and it will actually, I believe, kill the bacteria that causes odors. Whereas for something like Febreze makes it smell nice, but it really just kind of masks the smell. So if you can spritz your costume a little bit with some vodka water, that'll help out a whole bunch. And you ought to do that every evening at the convention to help out.
Especially something like Dragon Con that's 5 days long.
Exactly.
Sure,
Yeah.
that fifth
Although,
day.
part of the plan too with Dragon Con is to have a different costume every day.
Right.
Mix it up a little bit. So then you're not. And I will tell you, sometimes, like if I wear a costume, and I've done it, wear a costume for like 14 hours straight, take it off that night, hang it up, go to sleep, wake up the next day, you're like, the last thing I want to do is get back in that dirty costume.
I can only
still,
imagine.
It's still damp from the night before, and you're like, oh, there's no way I'm putting that back on.
It's like,
have a backup costume.
It's like putting on a pair of snow boots after shoveling from the day before.
Yeah.
They're just that moisture's still there.
Mm-mm.
Nope, no thanks. Well, now that we've painted that pretty picture. So you mentioned like the exact sentence you sent me was other kinds of making. So what are some other kinds of making that you do that you're involved in?
A lot of times, it's just I'm running my own shop. I have lots of tools. I'm running a video production studio, so I have to build anything that helps the day-to-day production. A good example, I have a CNC router in there. It makes a lot of dust. It's a big tool. It's got a spinning, rotating blade on it, and it just spits dust everywhere. So I want to create a vacuum system for it. Now, they don't make one. I can't just go buy one off the shelf. So I've got to either design one or follow someone else's design and make one myself, which is kind of neat. It's another fun problem-solving challenge for me. In that particular case, my buddy Harrison over at Vulpin Props came up with a really great plan on how to create a vacuum system for his CNC router. So I'm just going to follow along how he did it, maybe modify it a little bit to my own needs. But that's one cool thing. It's just a fun problem-solving challenge, and I already have all the tools I need to do it, which is pretty handy. But other aspects, like from the video production side, I wanted to get a nice camera slider to get those really smooth, nice sliding video shots that they have in cool videos.
Right.
And those, turns out, cost hundreds or thousands of dollars. I was, oh, how about that? So I was like, I have all these tools and materials. I can make one myself.
Right.
And I did. It's not as good as the ones you can buy. I may have to go back in and redesign some elements of it.
Right.
But I can do that. It's a problem-solving challenge that is really fun and satisfying for me to dive into. And when it works, then I have another tool in my belt to help my video production.
Right.
Yeah. The same thing with lighting solutions. The same thing with, I built all my benches, all the workbenches that I work on. I built all of those. It's all part of it.
You are the epitome of a do-it-yourselfer.
Exactly. Yeah, I have to. No one else is going to do it. My cat's worthless. That's not true. My wife joined the team full time almost a year ago now, and she is just a workhorse. She has been firing on all cylinders lately, and I couldn't do it without her.
That's really cool. It's nice that you can have that as a part of your relationship, and you can create things together. I've actually been talking to my wife about podcasting with me, and she goes, "What are we going to talk about?" I'm like, I had no idea what I was going to talk about when I first started. You just get on there and talk, and then you look at who downloaded what episodes, and then if that episode has a small download number, you don't talk about that stuff anymore.
No. Note to self: stop talking about smelly costumes. The fans are not into it.
No. I've seen some incredible. I assume you saw that Hulkbuster costume that was at one of the conventions.
That one was at I wasn't there, but I believe that was at New York Comic Con.
Right.
And that is an engineering feat, because he built that thing to be light enough that he could move around, and he can move in that thing.
Yeah.
Completely self-supported too. I can't imagine what would happen if he fell over. That sounds like a bad day.
Be like a
But
turtle on
yeah,
its shell.
yeah. Someone pick me up, please. That
Have
was cool.
Have you ever thought about or attempted a task like that where you were basically the small driver inside of a larger costume?
That would have been my Jim Raynor costume if I ever ever actually finished that.
Right.
No, I've got some ideas. The problem is that a lot of those types of projects just require um, a long tail sort of commitment on the
Right.
project build, and it's hard for me to commit to stuff like that. Normally, because we just have to keep churning out regular content
Right.
for our YouTube channel and everything. But I think it would be neat to take a really long-term project and do a long video series and just like once a month chime in on it and see where we are.
Right.
That would be pretty great. I just have to pick something. Also, I work in my basement and it's got really low ceilings. Like Hulkbuster wouldn't fit in there.
Be a lawn ornament.
Yeah, so I need a bigger space, which we're working on. We're going to be getting a bigger space this year, I think.
Nice. Well, that's cool. Yeah, those things, they just, again, the creativity between, stuff you've done and stuff other people have done, it always blows me away. I saw one thing where somebody had two web cameras as their eyes, and then they had like a screen in the costume, and that was how
Yeah.
they navigated. And like, just as human beings, what we can come up with
And
is just breathtaking.
that people can do that sort of project now um with budgets that are like both time and monetary budgets that are feasible
Right.
out of a garage.
Yeah.
Well, because like 10, 20 years ago, the thought of attempting a full scale Hulkbuster costume that one person could wear would be unrealistic.
Right.
Like that's, tens and tens of thousands of dollars. That's thousands of man hours. The materials themselves just not only be ridiculously expensive, but just inaccessible for the individual. But that's not the case anymore.
Right.
And also the how to, like the information was existed back then, but it was gated, it was guarded. You couldn't get at that information. And now, especially thanks to websites like the Replica Prop Forum and other makers like me who have been building out all this tutorial content, the how to is now getting solved.
Right.
The barrier to entry is crashing down.
Which is very good to see. And it allows more people to get out there, more creative people and more artists to get out there and put their spin on whatever they want to design and add to the art form that is cosplay. Well, Bill, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of start wrapping this up here.
Sure.
I want to thank you quite a bit for coming on. It was a lot of fun.
You're most welcome. It was a pleasure.
I loved to hear the inner workings of what you do and of Punished Props. And
Happy to share how the sausage is made.
If you have any questions for Bill, you can find him on Twitter at Chinbeard, or if you aren't on Twitter, you can contact him over at punishedprops.com.
Yep, we have a contact form over there. Twitter's the best place, really, though, because I check that all the time. But also, we've got our YouTube channel, like we were mentioning before. We've been putting a lot of effort into that lately. We have a Patreon campaign to help support that. All the information is over there, youtube.com/punishedprops. And especially check out the molding and casting series that we're doing right now. People have been asking for this for years, and we finally have the time and the resources to devote to it. It's going to be about 10 episodes long. We cover the materials you need. We cover the different techniques you need. We're doing an FAQ on that right now so people can bring us their molding and casting questions. It's been a lot of fun, and people seem to really enjoy it. So go check that out.
Awesome. And then you can also follow or listen to him. Is it Tuesdays or Mondays that you're on?
Tuesdays on the morning stream,
where you talk about fitness. Actually, really quick, and I'm gonna retract my statement of wrapping this up. We'll talk a little bit more. I lose track of myself. Sorry, people. I wanted to ask, because obviously, aside from prop making, fitness is a thing that you like to do.
That's right.
I'm a religious listener to the morning stream. There's always new tips that you're giving, new strategies you're trying, things like that. Do you find that goes hand in hand with cosplay? Is it because you want to be able to fit into the costumes you're making.
Yeah, for me, for me, I use cosplay sometimes as a motivation for personally for me to try and get my act together fitness wise.
Right.
So if I'm gonna wear my Wolverine costume again, and I want to wear just a tank top, I'll I'll use that as a personal motivation to maybe shed a couple pounds.
Right.
That works. That's very personal. That's for me. I'm not saying everyone else needs to do it like
Right.
that, but that's what works for me.
Right. Well, I mean, again, in whatever works, I've fluctuated up and down.
Yeah.
when you're
Oh, me too.
when you're married with 2 kids and you work full time, it's not the easiest thing to do. So, but again, thank you very much for coming on the show. Again, you can find Bill's stuff over at punishedprops.com, at Chinbeard on Twitter, and his YouTube channel is Punished Props.
You nailed it.
As for the show, you can follow us on Twitter at IG_Mind of a Geek. You can find the schedule of upcoming guests as well as the show notes for all of our episodes over at inkedgeekstudios.com/Mind of a Geek. If you have a question or comment for an upcoming guest, there is a form to submit your question to the show right there on the website. Excuse me, sorry. Big thank you to Mr. Dustin Bayette for providing us with our intro and outro music. And as always, if you enjoy the content we provide for you here at Inked Geek Studios, you can go over to go over to patreon.com/IG Studios and give a little value back for the value that you receive. So I think that will do it. So, Bill, again, thank you very much. And hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Sure thing. Everyone at home, you go out there and make some stuff. Give it a try.
Go out and make something.
It's super cool.
All right, Bill, you enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
You too. Take care, everybody.